been screaming for Stargate reboot. We've come close a few times. But is it actually a good thing it's not happened? Because of politics. Welcome to Tachyon Pulse podcast, part of the Scitrek family.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
We had Colin Cunningham on the channel on Scitrek a few months ago. And he actually did a really good video the other day on Dial the Gate. And he was talking about how, look, Stargate could get made today. And it'd have the Stargate name, but it wouldn't be Stargate. They wouldn't be allowed to make a TV show like that anymore. They wouldn't be allowed to do a show that promotes the military. Basically, TV shows today have to check a bunch of boxes. They're not entertaining anymore. And basically, TV shows like Stargate SG-1, Stargate Atlantis in particular, can't get made anymore. The studios won't allow it. The studios' political ideology that they're so obsessed with just forces out all of the creativity. Executives are so terrified of making a mistake or being accused of being sexist, racist, something elseist, that they won't take chances. And that is killing Hollywood. Now, I don't think many people watching this video right now will argue with much of that. A lot of TV shows we're seeing are dripping with politics, and to the point where it overtakes the story. And you guys know, I hate the term woke. I hate it. The original term is about being awake to racial inequality. It's supposed to be a good thing, but it's been twisted. It's become something completely different. The problem is it's the word we're stuck with now. It's the word that does describe basically when some of these agendas overtake the story. Now, look, some people will say, oh, 20 years ago, there wasn't this stuff in, Star Trek. When did Star Trek become about politics? Star Trek has always been about politics. There was a Russian on the bridge, for God's sake, during the Cold War. What did you think that was about? The problem is, though, they always did it in clever, subtle ways. The famous episode with the black and white, not a very subtle metaphor about racism. The guys with the black on that side hate the guys with the black on that side. They have a big civil war and they killed each other. It's not subtle. It's almost childlike in the way the metaphor was put together. But the episode has done so well, it became iconic. Now, in modern Star Trek, it's not subtle, it's not clever, and it doesn't make a point. It hits you in the face. Now, Doctor Who, I've just done a video talking about Disney's plans with that, is kind of the same. It smashes you in the face. Even shows that aren't politically correct on the surface, like The Boys, are really, have politics running all the way through it, but it's made better, with better characters, so we don't mind it so much. Movies, DEI, all of this stuff, it's harming Hollywood. And if Stargate had been made 3 years ago, or even in 2019 under Brad Wright, would the studios have forced that ideology on this show? Is Colin Cunningham right that actually, if the show had been made then, we would have got something that was woke? We wouldn't have got the Stargate we know. Now, I was being told that the powers that be at Amazon were trying to do an SG-1 conclusion, basically a continuation of SG-1. They wanted it in that style. I hear, though, that when Mark Fergus was in charge and he was developing a show, he was getting loads of grief from Amazon and they just weren't quite happy with what was being done. I've heard about 3 or 4 other teams that have tried to develop the show since, and we came that close to having a movie until it was cancelled during the strikes last year. So again, there was lots and lots of apparently arguments and challenges between the studio and the creators. Now, I've never been able to find out what a lot of those arguments were, but What if it was because the studio was trying to push some of this ideology on the creators, and the creators were trying to push back? Or the studio were basically saying, look, we want this, and the creators just couldn't do it, or couldn't do it in a way that made sense. So Amazon wouldn't actually sign off on it. Now, I would argue that the political winds are changing. Trump getting into power, whether you like it or not, is changing the political landscape in America. There is a push very hard against transgender rights and things like this. Something that terrifies me to my core. But it does mean the studios are backing off from things like DEI. They are trying to suck up to Trump a little bit. But also maybe they're, and this is maybe giving them more credit than they deserve, but maybe they're actually realising that they went too far. I've argued on lives several times that I actually think Hollywood, the problem wasn't really when sort of woke came along. It was sort of the Me Too movement and before that, really, in that suddenly Hollywood has been accused of being sexist, being racist, and to be honest, for 100 years it was. You know, the top actors were all white men. The top paid actors were all white men. Denzel Washington is one of the finest actors we've had in the last 20 years. He's never quite got the pay packets that his status would really deserve, until more recently, and things like The Equalizer. It is racist and it is sexist. It doesn't pay the women, even when they're the stars of the film, anything like what it pays the men. That is changing. I think Hollywood was so terrified of being called racist, sexist, everything elseist, particularly after the Me Too movement, that they had a massive overcorrection and they went way the other way. I do think now there's a kickback against that. And look, I'm hoping they don't go way the other way. You know, like, oh, we can be sexist and racist again. Yay! I hope that's not what happens. But maybe Hollywood can actually find a middle ground. Maybe they can find something that would allow them to actually be creative again, to be brave, to push boundaries. Maybe executives can back off and let the creators take over again. And if that's the case, then maybe it's a bloody good thing Stargate didn't get greenlit. The delay might have been just what the Stargate show needed. Maybe. I do think that if Stargate had returned when we first thought about this in 2019, but Brad Wright would have done something that we'd have loved. I think MGM were a small enough studio then that they wouldn't have been so concerned by the politics. I do worry that Amazon is. And that actually everything I've heard through this long saga of Stargate is that Amazon look at their metadata a great deal, and they actually think that all of this data that they gather through surveys and online chats and all this sort of stuff really influences them. Now that can be a good thing, but it could be a bad thing. Let's hope, though, that the change in the wind of politics will influence them, and that because of the way Amazon work, maybe they'll become a little bit quicker off the ball than maybe something like Disney, because they actually do listen to the people. They then try and tell us what we want, because that's what they do. But remember, Amazon built a business on selling people what they want at a price they want and delivering it the next day. If they take that philosophy into their TV and movies, the change in the wind of politics could be just what they need to allow creators to give us a show we actually want. But guys, get into the comments and tell me what you think. Am I talking rubbish? Or do you feel that actually this political change could actually be even worse than the massive overcorrection we saw after things like the Me Too movement? Get into the comments and tell me exactly what you think. But also, Just answer a simple question. Yes or no? Is it actually probably a good thing that Stargate has been delayed and that hasn't been greenlit yet? Because it probably would have been ruined by some of the stuff we've been seeing over the last 3 or 4 years. Get into the comments and tell me exactly what you think. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out and you'll never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can go to patreon.com/Scitrek, where most of our new videos do premiere first and you get to see them without the adverts. As always, please stay safe and I'll see you next time.